Hello Sofa Squad and welcome back to the sofa. Now I have a couple of things to go over today. So first things first, today's video is going to be about Barry Morphew, Suzanne Morphew, the preliminary hearing, some of the information that came out in there that stuck out to me. This will not be like an exhaustive list of it. I highly suggest if you want that to go watch the actual, watch the proceedings. I'm just going to talk about the parts that stuck out to me and offer some of my commentary and opinions, and they're just that. Opinions. This is allegedly. He is innocent until proven guilty. And so these are my two sofa cents from the sofa over here. Now on that note, you might be watching this and saying, where's the sofa, Paul? We can't find it. Why does your set look different? Why do you have a bad beard dye job? Well, I'll answer the question to all of those. First of all, the Sofa Squad is moving. Hi. We are going to be moving September 7th. We get the keys to the new place. I'll update y'all on that. So I have deconstructed the whole set for both the movie channel and here. So it's just scaled down to the stuff behind me for the next couple of weeks until we're out and all that kind of stuff. So there's that. The sofa is fine though. It's in storage. You'll be able to see more of it in the new place. Yes, I tried a new beard dye and y'all, it might look okay in the camera, I don't know, let me know. But yeah, it was really intense and I only left it in for a few minutes, so just bear with me. Now, before we get into everything or whatever, again, if you like to watch scary movies, if you like movie reviews, story times, you want all three bundled up and me delivering it, check out my movie review channel. It's brand new, it's free, give it a try. If you also want to join the channel, whether it's Patreon or a channel membership, and see more videos, usually like me talking about absurd criminals, dumb criminals, some cases too hot to handle, just some stuff that's like, probably better to do this in like the member section or whatever, then check that out. The links are in the description below. Also, thank you to all the people who make this channel possible. Y'all, the mods, the Patreons, the channel members, people who are here commenting, liking, sharing, and interacting. The channel would not be here without you, and I greatly appreciate it. Now let's go ahead and start dishing. So just a quick recap. Barry Morphew is currently incarcerated. He is facing charges in relation to his wife, Suzanne Morphew's disappearance. She went missing on Mother's Day of 2020. Still has not been found. It does not look good. She is probably at this point presumed, it's not looking good. But there is still hope out there. Maybe something could change and whatnot and turn it around. I always like to just at least have some level of hope still out there until it's like a confirmed, whether remains are found or something like that. So there still is hope. Now, what's going on specifically with this video? Barry was finally arrested, hit with charges in relation to what has allegedly taken place, and now they've done the preliminary hearing. So all this evidence is being, presented to the judge to say, like, are we going to trial? Are we doing this? Are we doing that? And some of this evidence, I'm just gonna say some of it, most of it, I was like, oh, what? I was just like, whoa. So again, just like with these cases where it's like a hot minute and then all this info comes out and you're like, holy McMoly, there was way more to this than I thought, and there's probably still even more we're gonna be shocked by. So that's what's taking place, and again, I'm gonna talk about the aspects of it that just really stood out to me. Okay, first things first. Okay, let's talk about Suzanne Morphew's affair that she was having with a guy named Jeff. Now, this is a disclaimer to all that. I am not shaming her for having this affair. I am not saying she's a bad person for having this affair. It's part of the case. It's something that the defense will 100% use. And so we're going to talk about that in context. I don't want to victim bash her or anything like that, because it's not about that. Even if people do things that we might not agree with, for say our own personal relationships or things like that, no one deserves to have happened what has potentially and allegedly happened to her over things like that. It's not right. So anyways, one thing that we learned is that, yes, Suzanne was having an affair with this guy named Jeff. Now, they had gone to high school together. They described each other as soulmates. He allegedly is one that turned her on to like IPAs and mountain biking. And so they had this like what now seems to be this, really intense relationship growing. An obvious question is going to be, well, where was he, when all this was going down or whatever. So his cell phone was pinging in Michigan when the disappearance took place. So, they're not really looking at him for that. Now, the one thing that did take place that a lot of people are like, is him not reaching out the moment she went missing. And we'll talk about that. So in 2019, Jeff and Suzanne had met in several places. New Orleans, Michigan, Indiana. And, they were having their little thing going on or whatever. Now, they put their plans on hold with each other because, like, right before Christmas, one of his daughters found out about the situation, told, like, a brother and uncle, that kind of thing. So they kind of, like, chilled for a while. Well, it rekindled again. Now, he was going to plan a trip to, like, out to Colorado or whatever. COVID happened, travel restrictions, all that kind of stuff took place and prevented that from happening. Now, again, like I mentioned earlier, a lot of people are like, well, why didn't he come forward about Suzanne and da-da-da-da-da? And he said, look, I didn't do that because I was basically afraid of Barry. I thought he was going to come after me. And he's like, I legitimately do not think Barry knew about this situation, which I think that twofold is very interesting. Number one, that he says he was afraid of Barry. And number two, that he's like, I don't think he knew. Now, another interesting thing and dynamic to their relationship is that in 2019, when they went to like her iCloud information, there was things of her searching Ecuador language schools and things like that, because he had told her like, oh, it's a good place to live, they have health care, it's cheap, da 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 da, and so all this stuff. Again, these are doorways, in my opinion, that will be utilized by the defense to be like, Suzanne's hiding out in Ecuador, like that's, where else, and that kind of a thing. So the Gone Girl scenario was kind of painted with the situation. Now, the fact that Jeff has not run off, the fact that Jeff, was pinging up in Michigan, that will work to the prosecution's benefit, in my opinion, just simply because there's no more to throw at it. I mean, he's just as dumbfounded, and you would think if she was going to run off with somebody and be somewhere new and start a life new, it would be him, possibly, in Ecuador. Now, on that note, let's talk about the spy pen. Okay, now I actually made a previous video where I was like, oh, I bet the spy pen and, whatever audio was on it was, Barry having an affair or something like that. Well, I'm eating crow pie on that one, y'all. I was wrong on that one because Suzanne bought a spy pen to spy on Barry because she was convinced he was having an affair. So the only thing that ended up on this spy pen, though, was number one, some arguments about money, which apparently was like a central argumentative theme between them, but then also conversations with Jeff. So if anything, it kind of backfired and just added more fuel to the fire or more evidence of her affair with Jeff. Now, also in regards to Suzanne's thoughts of, is Barry seeing someone else? They did show that they had found search histories of him going to visit Ashley Madison. That's like an adult site that is almost kind of like, in my opinion, a place where you are planning to have an affair. And then also Celebrity Jihad. That's very interesting for him to be searching that, but whatever. It's like extremist stuff, but of adult nature. Okay, to each their own or whatever. So I thought that was interesting that he's visiting that. Do we know if he was doing anything? I don't know. It's like maybe he was just going and looking at that or whatever. I'm sure, a lot of people probably went and checked out Ashley Madison just simply because you see it pop up and you're like, what is that? Let me go see. So I don't know about all that. We'll see if more evidence comes out about that to prove about him having an affair or not. Now, one of Suzanne's friends would testify that in 2019, she told Suzanne, like, look, you need to start like stashing money away so you can leave him, yada, yada, yada. And apparently Suzanne was doing that. Now, also in some of this testimony, we would learn that Suzanne had talked to her daughters about possibly leaving Barry, and also the daughters would say at some point in interviews and stuff like, look, we've never saw dad be like physically abusive to our mom. Okay, let's talk about the bombshell tags. I consider them bombshell at least. Now, some of these Barry would delete, and so of course, that ain't a cute look. But this is days before Suzanne disappeared. And I'm just going to read it verbatim. So Suzanne texts Barry this: "I'm done. I could care less what you're up to and have been for years. We just need to figure this out civilly." Now, Barry's response to this I find very interesting. He came back with like this low-key threat of taking his own life, which I'm just like, really? I mean, really? Like, that's never a good look. So there's that. Now, again, remember, this is all leading up days before the disappearance. So the day before, okay, there was 59 text messages between Susan and Jeff. That's major. That's texting all day long, basically. Like, for me, honestly, if you were to count Matt and I's text messages between each other, I mean, we might text back and forth that much every day, but that's like who your partner's with. So she's like not even talking to Barry, but they're blowing up this conversation over there, and Barry has this like crazy temper, and he found that out. Now, investigators considered the last proof of life of Suzanne was a selfie that she sent Jeff on that day of all those text messages while she was laying by the pool. So there's that. Now, it was soon after that that Barry would return home and all communication and text messages from Suzanne ceased to exist. Now, let's talk about some of the cell phone pings, because this is where it starts to get like... So they're saying that the cell phone pings on his phone make it look like he was running around the property. Now, this is what they're theorizing. They are saying that this is when Suzanne was still conscious. We'll talk about what that means here in a second. And that Barry was chasing her around the property. And that's where I'm just like, oh my God, because, you know, we've seen the house, we've seen Barry, obviously, we've seen Suzanne, you know, her picture, stuff like this. You can just envision it, you know what I'm saying? And that's where I just get like, oh, that poor woman. She must have been so scared. You know what I'm saying? Because like, imagine him, allegedly, in a rage coming at you. I mean, he's a scary guy, you know what I'm saying? So now Barry's excuse for this is that he was shooting chipmunks. And let's just pause the damn story there for a second. I'm sorry, I don't know about y'all, but I'm like, poor little chipmunks. I mean, I just think of Alvin, Simon, and Theodore, and the cute little things with the little stripes on their back, and I'm like, why would you do that? Maybe if they're a problem, they're like squirrels, although I'd hate to shoot a squirrel too. But I just was like, oh, well, that's just the icing on the cake. But investigators were like, did you use a 22? And he's like, yeah, I used a 22. Well, that doesn't look good for him either, because they found a tranquilizer cap, almost like, you know, one of those little needle cap things or whatever in the dryer. They know that a 22 can shoot those tranquilizers, and we'll talk about also the bullet that they found too. So we have the pings going off, Barry running around the property, tranquilizer cap found, a 22 shell is found in the bedroom on her side of the bed. You know, there's that. Now, let's talk about some of his movements on the day, because remember when all that went down, like when this was unfolding, and it was like, you know, he went to the hotel and this employee said that and it was like so shady, okay? It did not make sense, and we all knew then, like, this is very Chris Wattsy. This doesn't, you know, add up. And so to me, this evidence coming out more makes it look even worse. Now, also his phone was in airplane mode during that, so it's like, okay. I don't ever use airplane mode unless I'm on an airplane, and if then. Now, the first detection of all this is when he allegedly leaves for the job site in Broomfield at 5:30. Now, at 6:10, he will text Suzanne, hey, are you awake? Happy Mother's Day, that kind of a thing. Now, here's my thing with that, and again, everyone is different, and I don't want to sit here and be like, oh, well, this is how I do it, so, I mean, I get it. Okay, if you left at 5:30 and your partner is asleep in bed, and say that's like what they normally do, they're going to be sleeping and all that, why would you text them like 40 minutes later to be like, are you up? Happy Mother's Day. To me, I would be like, you know what, let them sleep. I'm not going to do the phone, you know, 7, 8 o'clock, whatever. Now, they normally could maybe both be up by then, and that was totally normal for him. I don't know. But it just seems very, allegedly, covering tracks. Now remember, this Broomfield job is where red flags are all over it. He spends very little time at that job site. Most of his time was spent, number one, stopping at 5 different locations to dispose of garbage that he cannot remember what the garbage was. So, I mean, hello, photos doulos. I mean, we've seen this before. You know, we ain't stupid. And then going in and out of that hotel room. And it all makes more sense now, because remember the chlorine smell? Anyways, so that's what was going on there. Now, here's my thing with that. first of all, when investigators showed up for the truck, to talk to him, whatever, they're like, there was still like garbage and like little pieces of trash in the truck. So they're like, well, if you're throwing stuff away, well, why wouldn't you throw this stuff away? And I'm sorry, but if you stop at 5 different locations to throw stuff away, who does that? I mean, who does that? Now, he had every story under the sun. Well, I was going to go, the reason I went in the opposite direction is because I was going to chase some elk to see if they dropped some horns. I mean, just complete out of character stuff. Here's the thing. We can all sit here and say, you know what, I might do things this way, they might do things that way, but there's just a whole bunch of weirdness that will surround somebody's story. And this story has a whole bunch of weirdness of things that are just like, well, wait, I need to question this. Why did you do that? Okay, now let's stop here. I need to question that. And when you have to keep doing that over and over with a story, it ain't passing the vibe check. Now, just a few other points of stuff that was brought up. So a couple of days after this took place, like when investigators were interviewing him and took pictures, they would take pictures and show what they said was light, faint scratch marks on his arm. Definitely not good. Also, again, the 22 shell. Remember, Barry owns a 22. Tranquilizer fits a 22. The bullet fits the 22. Bullet's next to her side of the bed. Now, also, there was damage to the door of the master suite. They talked to the previous owners, and they're like, nope, it was all good when we sold it. And so they're testifying, investigators, people like this, that, you know what, this is a door that has been battered in. Now, there's also some stuff burned in the fireplace, and it looks like possibly it could have been her journal. Now, a big mamma jamma thing here for me is the DNA evidence. And I'm just going to talk about it real quick and I'll tell my opinion. Okay, so what is going on is Barry's defense is saying that a partial match of male DNA on her glove box was found, and it's a partial match to another, like, SA assault in Arizona. So a couple of things before immediately go off. Okay, well, this is major. Maybe she just, lightning struck twice kind of a thing, you know what I'm saying? Then you have to question, does it match Barry's? Do we have a serial you-know-what in our hands? Now, during questioning, one of the investigators did say, yeah, you know what, we tried to match Barry's DNA up, but it didn't match. So this is going to open the door. I totally think that they are going to try and do this, of saying, well, no, here's reasonable doubt. This could be, another man, another person. Now, investigators would say, you know what, look, they were saying that this was more like a potential lead as opposed to a match. So it's gray zone here as far as I'm concerned with that. The other part is that Barry's DNA was found on her bike seat and on the glove box. Now, of course, this is her husband. You're going to expect his DNA. You know what I'm saying? Of course, it's going to be all over the place with her stuff. The bike seat's a little suspect, but it could be, touch DNA or whatever, transfer DNA, whatever you call it. So, to me, the DNA is going to be something that the defense tries to use as muddying the waters, reasonable doubt, that type thing. I personally think that just the little bit that we've heard here, they'll be able to, the prosecution, they'll be able to prove to say, look, this is partial matches, because they're trying to say there's 2 different cases, like Arizona and Chicago, with this partial match, whatever. They're going to be like, look, we can't even, number 1, match the Arizona and Chicago officially. Number 2, this is partial, like this, no, you cannot conclusively say, oh my God, here we go. But again, all that defense needs is like some reasonable doubt. Now, for me personally, we're gonna round this out with some 2 cents here. Here's my thing. Like I said, if it walks like a duck, quacks like a duck, all that stuff, I can't remember it. It might be a damn duck. Here's my thing with this. There are so many red flags up here, y'all. And again, this evidence needs to be vetted out. It needs to be, go through the due process. But there's enough here that I'm like, oh, they're totally taking this to trial. I'll be shocked if they don't. Now, remember, the judge said, he's like, I'm not making a decision yet. So that's going to come up, I imagine, any day now. In fact, you might be watching this after they have said that we're going to trial or not going to trial, whatever. That hasn't taken place yet. I really don't see how they wouldn't take it to trial, but again, who am I? Nobody. So that's it. I am curious to see what y'all thought of the evidence. Do you think it's going to trial? What do we allegedly think? Do we think he's guilty? Do we think that possibly Suzanne's in Ecuador? I'm curious what the Sofa Squad thinks. Now, again, thank you everybody for being here, for making this possible. Don't forget, check out my movie channel if you want to see that. And that's it. Thank you everybody. I really appreciate it. Until next time, I'll see you soon.